Want to level up your leadership? Welcome to The Boss Coach.
A dash of cool, a splash of class. The Boss Coach leads, no time to pass. Oh, the Boss Coach, the leader's guide.
Man, I can't tell you how many compliments I've gotten on my theme song. Oh wait, yes I can. It's 0. Hey boss, how's business? And how are you doing? You have a lot of people going on vacation soon. Is it tough to kind of get coverage? How about you? You taking PTO like you're supposed to? I know I am. We're going up in the mountains. Sometimes we like the beach, sometimes the mountains. So this time it's the mountains. Thanks for clicking and listening. My name is Patrick McGranahan and welcome back to The Boss Coach. If you're new to the show, I would recommend going out to the podcast trailer. That's episode 100. And it gives you a little background on me, on what the podcast is all about, gives you an idea of what to expect. So check that out. Well, let's jump right into today's topic. Well, here's the best way to describe it.
I am your mother, you listen to me.
That's right, Megan Trainor. We're coming out of the parent holidays, or at least by the time I'm recording this anyway. So it seems appropriate to talk about leadership lessons from parenting. What are the similarities? What are the differences? What can we learn from fathering and mothering? And is it reductive to compare leading a team or a business to leading your family? I think not at all. I think there's a lot of good relevant stuff here. Both rely on your guidance, right? Your team and your family. They're all your people, right? You provide for both. They spend as much waking time with you at work as they do their family. Then it's very similar. Parenting is certainly a test of your abilities, I would say. So here are what I call the 4 abilities that we have in common between leading your family and leading your team at work. All right, lesson number 1 is adaptability. Again, these are all abilities. Things change quickly at home. Kids get sick, appliances break down, dinner gets burned, there's a surprise birthday party, you name it, there's always something fun. I always go back to a story I like. When I was younger, there was a big storm, and famously, a levee somewhere down the creek we lived next to, because I was raised out in the country, the levee broke, and a lot of water came in all of a sudden, kind of overtook our homestead. Not enough to where it was in the house, but we did have to leave the house in a boat in the dark in a thunderstorm. That was not the most fun. But we waited it out and finally came back into the house and found that there was just like a fine level of silt, maybe. A little water had gotten in on the linoleum and here and there, just enough to make a mess. And I remember, my father walking into the porch, getting an eye on what was going on. And without a word, he just grabbed a mop and started to work, started cleaning. And that always taught me that, things are going to change a lot. You have to be ready for the unexpected. But when it comes time to do the job, you just do the job and deal with it. That's really all you can do. There's no other option. I know at work, boy, my support team gets slammed sometime. I have 2 teams. And when they're hit hard, all you can really do is, if you had any other meetings that day, anything else you were supposed to do, you reschedule it, you deal with it. You take the time, you adapt, and you roll with the punches. Lesson number 2 is responsibility, another ability. That means, the buck stops here. You're the boss, warts and all, right? You have the final say on everything, whether it's someone's vacation, even your vacation at home, your family dog, where you live, all that stuff. Ownership means responsibility. It reminds me, just recently, my daughter said, hey, I think that the water's not as hot and the pressure's down. So I knew something was wrong. Go down to the basement. Sure enough, the water heater is spitting water out the top. Maybe you're not technically acute, but it's not supposed to do that. So had to make some quick adjustments to the nightly schedule and take care of that. Because it falls on me. Everybody says, well, the water heater is broken. What happens now? And everyone's eyes go to me. Being head of household means you have the final say, means you have the responsibility. So then when you're at work, for example, maybe your team doesn't make the metrics. Maybe you're behind on a few things. The buck stops with you. You have to answer for it. I know my people just need to worry about getting the work done. Do what you're supposed to, do it well. I will handle everything else. I will handle reporting. I'll handle the brass. I'll handle the explanation of the situation. I will handle the resolution. You just worry about getting the work done. The third ability is sensibility. That's lesson number 3 from parenting. I think this is where empathy comes from. People make mistakes, and kids make a lot of them. Sometimes those mistakes cost you a lot of money, or at least repainting a wall. But either way, you have to be there for them, even when nobody's there for you. That's a tough one to learn. Be compassionate, even if you're not necessarily always receiving compassion. You have to do that for them. That is your role in life. I remember when our oldest daughter, Elizabeth, was born, I got her a baby ring, a tiny little baby ring, really cute. I knew I'd hold it for her when she was older. Well, then when she was maybe 8 or 9, she found it in a box, and what's this? And I told her, and she loved it. She was so enamored with it, and she couldn't wait to wear it on a necklace or something, and she ran out to show it to her friends next door. And of course, she dropped it in the yard and lost it forever. I was very livid about that. But the sensibility in me says, all right, people make mistakes. That ring is not the symbol of her youth. That's not all lost. We just move on, right? It's just a thing. And now at work, back when I worked in the coffee industry, as you can imagine, the number one commodity, the number one product is coffee. So there was one time we didn't order enough. My inventory control person didn't get it. We ran out of coffee, had to pivot, go get some more. That seems like a real boneheaded mistake, right? But all you can do is just say, hey, well, what do we learn from that? How do we do our inventory to prevent running out of coffee? Because that is our number one thing. And then you move on and they don't make that mistake again. Depending on how you react at that time, how sensible you are, will indicate whether they stay, how they feel about their job, and whether they make that mistake again. Then finally, lesson 4 is visibility, another ability. Kids just want you to be there. At work, they want you to be there. You have to show up, right? For kids, at a concert, they're playing violin, they're playing trumpet, or at a game, they're playing soccer, whatever. If you watch, they're scanning the crowd. They're looking in the bleachers, they're looking in the stands to see if they see you. And if you've ever seen their face light up when they see that you're there, that their people have come to watch, man, there's nothing like that. There really isn't. And just like at work, your team needs to walk by your office or your desk or your workstation, see the doors open, know that you're there. Even if you're engaged on a meeting or doing something else, like they know that you are in the office, that you are even virtually available if everybody's remote. They can see on Teams that you're available, and that you will message them during a meeting even if that's what they need. You got to be there, you got to be visible. I remember when Bree, our second oldest, was in college in teacher education, and there was a class on storytelling. And that's kind of my jam. As I've said, I have a couple of books in print. So they asked me to come speak to the college class about storytelling. And I did. And, it's a little bit unnerving to speak to a college class, but I did. It was a lot of fun. And I got that same look from her as I got from her showing up for her basketball games when she was younger. And that was awesome. Like, yes, you showed up, you were visible, you're being a dad in public in the wild. And then at work, I have a lot of examples of visibility in a working situation, but I'll sum it up by one thing. I had a one-on-one recently with a newer person on my team, and the very first time I met with her when she joined my team, she ended the call, and I ended, of course, by saying, is there anything you need from me? And she said, no, but I got to tell you, I've already spoken to you more than my previous boss of 3 years, and that meant everything to me. Being visible means being available. It means being there for them and just being present. So therefore, to be a good parent is to be a good leader. I think it's the same vibe. It's the same energy. You lead your family and your teams with the same kind of commitment. It's the same skill set. And I would argue that if you are a good boss, you are a good parent and vice versa. So just like I encourage you to ask your people for feedback all the time, you should also check in with your family, right? So for this part, I am joined by my youngest daughter, Ella. Ella, thank you so much for helping me out today. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about how parenting is kind of like leadership from the perspective of a kid.
I'm not your employee, though. You know that, right?
Okay, do we pay for everything?
Yes.
Do we ask you to do stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then. All right, first question. What do you think is the parent's number one job?
I think the parent's number one job is to provide for their family and make sure that their family has everything they need.
Everything they need, but not necessarily everything they want, right?
Yeah.
So how do you know that we're doing that for you?
Because most of the things that I ask for are things that I want, and I basically have everything I need.
Okay, so we've provided all the basics for you, just like we said last episode in servant leadership, how give your people everything they need and they will succeed. Okay, that's great. What do you worry about when you're not around us?
Probably my safety.
Oh, that's a big one. So that's, of course, in Maslow's hierarchy, safety is really far up there. But that gets better when you're around us.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, how does it make you feel when we're walking somewhere unfamiliar, but yet mom and dad are with you?
Well, I feel like as long as you guys are with me, I feel like I have that protection, and I feel like that you guys won't let anything happen to me. So it's kind of like a barrier of safety is around me because I kind of trust you guys, and I'm like, okay, I might not know where I'm going, but they seem like they do. So
I love that. And that is directly applicable to your people at work because they don't worry about what your boss is saying. They don't worry about what's going on the board meeting. They don't need to worry about the steering committee. That's all the stuff that you take care of.
Growing up, I feel like you guys have always told me that don't worry, you don't have to worry, we can worry for you.
That's right, and that's really a leader's job. Okay, so let's talk about mistakes. When you make a mistake, not that you do, but how do you want us to handle that?
I think that patience is really key and communication. Instead of saying, you did this wrong and that's all, and not giving context, then I don't know how I'm going to fix it. And like I'm kind of left with that uncertainty that affects how I do from there on.
That's really interesting. Okay, so uncertainty is part of not understanding how to fix the mistake then. So it's very important that we're very clear with our family and with our people. So I know I'm not always great at handling this. So how do I usually handle this when you make a mistake?
It's kind of like you'll say, you did this wrong. And it's, once again, leaves me with that uncertainty.
Yeah, and I sometimes tend to get angry too, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't help things either. It's the clarity and it's handling with a tone that lets them know that you're in a safe place to make mistakes, because we all make mistakes. And they need to know that that's something that, they're not going to get fired for or kicked out of the family. It's just part of life. Okay, so how do you feel when you don't always get what you want? Does that ever happen?
It happens more than you think. I feel upset because basically I'm not getting everything I want, and I just want everything to go my way.
Do you have an example of a time recently?
Probably my energy drink obsession.
Yeah, you do love your energy drinks, but why don't we give them to you?
Because it's not good for me, and you guys just want me to be safe and healthy.
So how do you resolve that in your head? Like, that we're right because it's not good for you, but you still want it.
In the long run, I would rather be healthy than have a good tasting drink.
Okay, so sometimes the clarity comes later, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So it's still important to do the right thing now, even though it might get angry. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, last question. When your friends complain about their parents, I'm not sure if they do, but when they do, what do they usually say?
They say stuff about how my parents did this, my parents said that, they're so mean, they don't care about me, blah, 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 stuff like that.
Okay, but do you think that any of their parents actually said those words?
Nope, because there's no context clues to kind of explain it. They just say that.
That's a great point. See, so that's a great lesson for everyone, because it's not always what you say, it's how you say it and the context that you say it in. So they're hearing your meta language. We'll cover that in a different episode, but they're hearing your meta language, which includes cues and things that you don't realize that you're doing. So it's all about how it's framed. And so whether it's a family or whether it's your employees, listening to their grievances and handling it appropriately is extremely important to making them feel safe and protected. All right, Ella, you were awesome. Thank you so much for helping me today.
Of course.
Hopefully you'll want to do it another time.
Absolutely.
We'll take that as a maybe. Okay, thank you again, Ella. All right, so as you can see from Ella and from our other examples, leaders can learn a lot from parenting. Mother's Day, Father's Day, when is Boss's Day? Either way, they're all the same thing. You celebrate the same type of leadership. So our 4 abilities again: adaptability, responsibility, sensibility, and visibility. Learn it, love it, live it. Now here's what I want you to do today. Again, we always leave every episode with something you can do right now as soon as you're done listening. I want you to ask either your own parent, if they're still with us, or a child, if you have them, if not a sibling. But I want you to ask them, what do you think is a parent's number one job for the family? Just like I asked Ella earlier. What is the parent's number one job? What's the most important thing a parent does? And I will bet you that the answer mirrors the same thing that you would hear from the people that report to you at work. Let me know in the comments how that goes, what they say back, whether it surprised you or whether it really reiterated what I've already told you. So in closing, we have a big table. Like, I'm so proud and happy I have a family big enough to where I had to keep getting a bigger and bigger table, and now I still don't have enough seats. But at the head of the table, the seat of honor, that's where I sit, and I'm very proud to do that. It's somewhat symbolic, but then again, not really. If I'm not at dinner for some reason, there's always like this funny fight over who gets to sit there. Or if I take too long to get to the table, somebody will jump in there as a joke, as if like, look, I took your spot. It's this whole funny thing. So one day I had to sit somewhere else because one of the little guys was sitting there. I said, that's fine, you take that spot. And someone said, aren't you mad? I go, no, I'm not mad. If I moved that chair somewhere else and sat in it, is that any different? Like, what's different about that? Are you the head of the family at the beginning of the table? And they said no. So it's because it's not the chair, it's the person. It doesn't matter whether you have a big office or you have a desk right next to your people, the side chair at your table or the end of the table. It doesn't matter. It's the person that leads and not the chair and not the position. All right, well, thank you for your time. I am Patrick McGranahan, the Boss Coach. Make sure to thumbs up and subscribe so you get notice of all the new episodes. As you see, we're building up a mass of them out there now, so if you haven't heard the ones before this, please go out and do that. Send me your comments too. I love to hear from you. I'm getting some great suggestions for future episodes. I'm learning a lot from this, and I hope you're learning too. So I will see you next time on the Boss Coach. Until then, back to work, boss.
Thank you for joining us today for The Boss Coach, hosted by Patrick McGranahan. We'd also like to thank our associate producer Hannah and consulting contributor Stephanie. Original music provided by Sono AI Studio. All statements and opinions by our host and guests are solely their own observations and may not reflect those of their contemporaries or employers. Please check out other episodes of The Boss Coach for more valuable opportunities to level up your leadership. Until next time, I am your announcer, Ava. Have a great day, and as always, lead with your heart.